Ever After High seems to have a much stronger plot and world building than Descendants, but why exactly is that? Hi, I'm Ainsley from Fairy Tale Vibes, and today we are finally going to be comparing Ever After High and Descendants. Now, specifically, I want to compare Descendants and Ever After High's world building because overall, Ever After High and Descendants do have different plots. What more so is similar about them is their world building and the fact that they are both set in the world where the descendants of fairy tale characters are attending high school together. I know Descendants claims to be different from Ever After High because they are descendants of Disney characters, not necessarily fairy tale characters, but guys, most Disney characters are fairy tale characters. Now, what is interesting about the Descendants world building is it seems like a lot of the world building from Descendants is based off misunderstood concepts from Ever After High. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for example, in Ever After High, we have the concept of the royals versus the rebels. Now, a lot of people think this is villain kids versus hero kids, but this is not at all true. A lot of the rebels, their parents are heroes, and a lot of the royals, their parents are villains, so that's not true. But people misunderstood it to be hero kids versus villain kids, which is then what Descendants is. Just a little correction, it is actually VKs versus AKs, AKs standing for Ordon kids. For some reason, I misremembered it as hero kids, and also I kept saying hero kids on my TikTok and nobody corrected me, so I just went with that, but I looked it up and it's actually Ordon kids. So sorry, whenever I say hero kids during this video, that's what I mean, but most of the kids at Ordon Prep are the kids of the heroes, so yeah. Another example, a lot of people think the parents of the Ever After High characters are the original fairy tale characters. That is not true. Ever After High was founded 200 years ago, and so there have been many generations of like different Snow Whites, so Apple's mom Snow White is not the original Snow White. However, that is actually true in Descendants. In Descendants, their parents are the original fairy tale characters / Disney characters. The reason I am saying all of this is because I think the reason the Descendants world building sucks so much is because truly, quite honestly, and now this is all alleged, I feel like whenever the Disney executives were trying to put together something to compete with Ever After High, whenever they were trying to put together Descendants, to me it just seems like they looked at Ever After High, didn't look into any of the world building, didn't try to understand the plot, and just sort of ripped it off badly because, again, they just misunderstood the main plot concepts of Ever After High and then ripped them off. And then because they put all these like bad plot concepts together for Descendants, that's why Descendants has such weak world building. Now, I know if you are a huge Descendants fan, you might be screaming at your screen right now, or maybe not, because there are a lot of Descendants fans who also really like Ever After High and who also maybe agree that definitely by the third movie, the Descendants world building was sort of falling apart, which I will get into because I do think the Descendants movie started off kind of strong, but then because they were built on a weak foundation of world building, I think by the third movie it started to sort of crumble, which is why I think a lot of Descendants fans didn't want to come back for the fourth movie. But anyway, even if you are really mad with me right now, I would really encourage you to stick around and watch this video till the end because I am going to go world building element by world building element, comparing Ever After High to Descendants and explaining why I think Ever After High did these world building elements better. If there's anything that Descendants did better, I will shout it out. And of course, I'm going to shout out right here, I think Descendants did the music, the dancing better. Like, Ever After High doesn't have music and dancing like that. Like, let's just be honest. And also, I want to point out that most of the creatives who worked on Descendants couldn't really help like that Disney set them up with these sort of weak world building elements, because like I said, I think the upper people at Disney were the ones who were like, okay, we're going to give you these key world building elements that you have to build a movie series out of because we want to, you know, get in on that Ever After High cash. Allegedly. And then I think the higher ups basically just gave them these basic world building elements to work off of, and then all the creatives who worked on Descendants really had to build a world around that made sense, which was hard to do because a lot of these world building elements are kind of weird, but I think they still did a phenomenal job because all the music and songs are so great. But anyway, let's get into it because like I said, we are going to go world building element by world building element, comparing Ever After High to Descendants. So first of all, we are going to start off with the royals versus rebels and the hero kids versus villain kids. Now, I just want to make it very clear, I already did an entire video explaining who the royals and rebels actually are and explaining why I don't like the royal versus rebel slogan because it causes people to very much oversimplify the royals versus rebels. So if you want more details on that, go check out that video. I will link it somewhere. But basically, what I'm going to say about the royals versus rebels right now is sort of a much shortened version of what I say in that video. So basically, who are the royals? The royals are anyone with royal blood who basically believes that everybody should follow the same destiny as their parents and continue the destiny cycle. Now, what exactly is the destiny cycle? Well, if you haven't watched Ever After High, I'll basically give you a little summary of what Ever After High is and what the destiny cycle is. Basically, all of the characters in Ever After High exist behind the fourth wall. They exist in the fairy tale world, and the characters in Ever After High basically believe that if they continue to follow the exact same destiny as their parents, then their stories will be told over and over again in the real world. For example, one of the main characters, Apple White, she is the daughter of Snow White, and she basically believes that if she signs her name in the Storybook of Legends and repeats her same destiny, then the Snow White fairy tale will continue being told in the real world. Now, in Ever After High, the destiny cycle has been continuing for many generations. In fact, Ever After High, the school itself, is 200 years old. In fact, Ever After High, the high school, was founded in 1812 by Milton Grimm, one of the brothers Grimm, and we can basically assume that because 1812 was also the year that the brothers Grimm book was released in the real world, that Milton Grimm basically founded the Ever After High high school to keep all the characters following their same destinies over and over again, more specifically to keep following the brothers Grimm destinies over and over again, so that the brothers Grimm fairy tales would be continuously retold in the real world. And quite honestly, I think that is a very interesting plot setup. So basically, their whole lives, all the characters in Ever After High have been told that they have to sign their name in the Storybook of Legends and commit to following the exact same destiny as their parents. Well, this sort of becomes a problem when Raven over here, the daughter of the evil queen, decides she doesn't want to be evil. She doesn't want to follow in the evil footsteps of her mother. She quite literally does not want to be the next evil queen. And now let's get back into talking about royals versus rebels, because the rebels were quite literally born on Legacy Day when Raven refused to sign her name in the Storybook of Legends and refused to follow the same destiny as her mother, because again, Raven didn't want to become the next evil queen. So basically, the rebels are people who agree with Raven. The rebels are people who believe you can choose to either follow your destiny or not follow your destiny, and it's basically up to you to choose. Whereas the royals believe that everyone should follow their destinies no matter what, and the royals basically believe it's like some sort of like grave sin, or you could like doom everybody to the apocalypse if you don't follow your destiny. So that's the two sides. And I think the royals and rebels are much more interesting because it's much more nuanced. It's sort of like two political parties, and there's a lot more to think about with the royals versus rebels setup, and it's very interesting, and there's like a lot of, you know, moral questions you could bring up with the royals who believe you should follow tradition, do the exact same thing as your parents, and the rebels who believe you should do whatever you want. And the thing is with the royals, some of them are sons and daughters of heroes, but some of them are also sons and daughters of villains. For example, Lizzie Hearts is a royal, but she is the daughter of the Queen of Hearts, who is the villain from Alice in Wonderland. Additionally, some of the rebels, you know, their parents are actually heroes. For example, one notable rebel is Cedarwood. Cedarwood is the daughter of Pinocchio. Would you consider Pinocchio a villain? I don't think so. Now, sort of the equivalent to this in Descendants is the hero kids versus the villain kids. And quite honestly, the fact that the names hero kids and villain kids exist is one of the reasons why I believe Disney was definitely inspired by Ever After High for Descendants, because that's quite literally what most people who haven't watched Ever After High misunderstand the royals and rebels to be. So it just feels like somebody who didn't understand Ever After High looked at like the slogan of Ever After High and said, hey, let's do that. But anyway, there's nothing inherently bad about the hero kids versus the villain kids. Like, it's interesting. I do think it does kind of show how, you know, the villain kids were raised different, but they are still given a chance and they can still try to be good. And yeah, I think it's different. But again, I just feel like if Ever After High didn't exist, they would have never tried to like shoehorn this concept into Descendants, because yeah, like, it does kind of show what the plot of Descendants is, which is like the villain kids, you know, like coming to the mainland, coming to Oregon and learning how to like live with the heroes. But like, I just don't know if like and then there's like certain times where they're like, we're the villain kids, we're gonna band together. But like, one of the cringest things about the villain kids versus the hero kids is like, do you know like the song It's Going Down from Descendants 2? There's like a point in the song where Mal's like, don't mess with the VKs, and she's like talking to like Uma and her crew. Meanwhile, like Uma and her crew are also VKs. So I'm like, girl, what are you even saying? Like, you're all villain kids here, like what? Also, another thing about the VKs, how do they even know that their parents are villains? Because they are not aware that they are in a story. So in Ever After High, they are very much aware that they are in a story and they all have certain roles to play in the story. And at Ever After High, they even have classes like general villainy to teach them how to be villains. So when Raven Queen, for example, in Ever After High says her mom's a villain, it makes sense because she knows that in the Snow White story, her mom is a villain, but in Descendants, they're not really aware that they're part of any story. So why do they call their parents villains? And also, if they think their parents are bad people, like, why are they proud of that? I feel like in real life, even if we would consider somebody a very bad person, most of the time they think they're doing the right thing, so they wouldn't necessarily call themselves a villain. I don't know, I just feel like it's confusing, but that's another thing that just confuses me about the VKs. Yeah, so hero kids versus villain kids isn't necessarily bad, it's just like, it just seems like a cheaper version of Royal versus Rebel that doesn't really have any plot significance besides the fact that, you know, like, the villain kids have to adjust after they come to the mainland from the Isle of the Lost, but it's like, you could have done that without the label. Like, I don't think they necessarily needed it, but it doesn't necessarily hurt the plot. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. I just wanted to make a quick interjection to say that if you like this video, make sure to like and comment, and when you comment, you can actually tell me what you're thinking so far. Do you think Ever After High is better, or do you think Descendants is better, and why? Let me know. Additionally, I know a lot of you guys keep coming back to watch my videos, but you aren't subscribed, so make sure to subscribe, and also, just so you know, I have an Ever After High playlist where you can binge watch all these videos. So anyway, make sure to subscribe, make sure to support the channel if you want to see more videos like this, but we're gonna get back into the video and continue talking about Ever After High and Descendants. So that's the first world building element I wanted to cover. The next world building element I want to cover is sort of the Isle of the Lost versus the Destiny cycle in Ever After High. Now, I didn't know exactly how to describe this world building element, but sort of what I am talking about is in Descendants, we have the Isle of the Lost. Now, the Isle of the Lost is where all the villains and their kids live. And the reason I want to compare the Isle of the Lost to the Destiny cycle in Ever After High is because the Isle of the Lost is sort of supposed to explain how all the villains are alive and how all their kids are alive and why the kids of the villains are separated from the kids of Ordon Prep, right? Now, what I want to say here is I feel like the Destiny cycle is a much better explanation for why the kids of the villains exist and why the villains are still alive. Because in Ever After High, for the next generation of fairy tales, you always need a villain. Like, they are repeating these fairy tales, and they're not just gonna, like, repeat the fairy tales without the villains, because you sort of need the villain to repeat the fairy tale. Like, otherwise there's no conflict. So basically, the Destiny cycle explains why all the villains are allowed to, you know, like, reproduce and have kids. Additionally, the Destiny cycle also explains why many of the villains are allowed to continue living, even when they may have died in their original story. For example, like Ginger's mom, she is basically the candy witch from Hansel and Gretel, and in the original version of Hansel and Gretel, the candy witch is basically supposed to get burned alive in her oven when Hansel and Gretel lock her in there and basically die. Well, basically Ginger's mom knew that was coming, so basically she built a door into the back of her oven so that at the end of her destiny she could escape. Now Headmaster Grimm is the one who enforces all these destinies, and Headmaster Grimm basically doesn't care, because to Headmaster Grimm she still fulfilled her destiny, and Headmaster Grimm doesn't care that she didn't die, even though theoretically in the original Destiny she would have died, but he doesn't care because that just means she can reproduce and have a kid to continue the Destiny cycle. Additionally, another example of this is in the Little Red Riding Hood story. The Big Bad Wolf is originally supposed to die. However, in Cerese's parents' case, which if you didn't know, if you haven't watched Ever After High, Cerese's dad is secretly the Big Bad Wolf, her mom's Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, so in Cerese's parents' case, basically Little Red and the Big Bad Wolf were in love, so Little Red Riding Hood hid the Big Bad Wolf from the huntsman when the huntsman came, so the huntsman couldn't kill the Big Bad Wolf, but because the time had run out, I guess they fulfilled their destiny, and the Big Bad Wolf didn't need to die. Now, again, Headmaster Grimm doesn't care about this, because then he knows that the Big Bad Wolf can go have a kid to fulfill the destiny in the future. So that's basically explaining the Destiny cycle. The Destiny cycle basically explains why the villains are allowed to continue living and are allowed to have kids and are not, like, just, you know, shipped off somewhere for the rest of their lives, besides the Evil Queen, which we'll get to the Evil Queen later. Now, here is my problem with the Isle of the Lost. Remember what I said. While Ever After High is based on the fairy tales, Ever After High takes place at least 200 years after the original fairy tale. So even if certain characters died in the original fairy tale characters, them being alive in Ever After High is explained by the Ever After High characters being many generations removed from the original fairy tales. However, this is not the case in Disney. In Disney, Descendants is quite literally supposed to take place one generation after the original Disney movies. Also in Descendants, there is no legacy cycle. They are not repeating the same destinies as their parents, so there's no, like, oh, I'm going to become the next Maleficent. Like, that is not a thing. So basically, the Isle of the Lost was created after the endings of the original Disney movies. Now, this is a problem because in the endings of most of the original Disney movies, guess what? the villains die, but somehow they're all alive on the Isle of the Lost. Now, people who are really big Descendants fans have told me, and thank you for telling me this, that they do explain this in the books by saying, oh, they were resurrected and then put on the Isle. And I don't know if there's a better explanation for this in the books, but that just seems silly, because why would you resurrect the most powerful villains and put them all on an island together where they can reproduce and have children, even if you feel bad and want to bring them back to life for some reason, which I don't even get. I just don't even get it. Why would you not put them in like a mass like security prison? Like, I just don't understand the fact of putting all these people on an island together. And on top of that, there are clearly some villains who are much more dangerous than others. Like, for example, you aren't going to tell me like Mr. Smee and Maleficent are the same level of dangerous. And I think that's very, that is very clear from Descendants as well. Like, not all the villains are the same level of dangerous, but like, why are they all given the exact same punishment? Why are they all on the island together? And why are they allowed to have kids? And then why are the kids also kept on the island and punished? Like, that whole system just makes no sense to me. And it's just I feel like the Isle of the Lost and all the kids being stuck on the Isle of the Lost was just sort of created to create this false sense of competition between the hero kids and villain kids. Because like I said, I just feel like they were trying to manufacture the same conflict in Ever After High that Ever After High had between the royals versus rebels. However, the conflict in Descendants feels very manufactured, because it feels like it could have just all been avoided by just like letting the villains stay dead, or just not letting them have children, or if they did have children, just like not trapping the children on a prison island with their evil parents. Like, what the heck? It just seems like very dumb world building to me. And I feel like this world building completely shatters by the time we get to the third movie, because at the end of the third movie, spoiler for Descendants, they just basically release everybody on the Isle. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but there's still very dangerous people on the Isle. Like, maybe you could have just said, okay, all the kids can come to Ordon Prep, all like the people who aren't violent and have served their time can be free. But like, why is everyone, oh my gosh. Like, speaking of the Evil Queen, and I said I would bring back up the Evil Queen from Ever After High again. The Evil Queen is sort of an example of someone, like a villain from one of the Destinies, who went beyond the evil they were supposed to perform in their destiny, because most of the time in Ever After High, the villains are basically allowed to fulfill the evil from their destiny, and then they're like done. The problem with the Evil Queen in Ever After High, and this again is Raven's mom, is that after she did the whole, Snow White destiny, she poisoned Snow White, she basically went on and also poisoned Sleeping Beauty, and Headmaster Grimm's like, hey, stop doing that, that's too much. She couldn't stop. Then she went on and tried to basically obliterate Wonderland. She basically tried to cast a spell to poison all of Wonderland, so Headmaster Grimm and his accomplices basically trapped the Evil Queen inside Mirror Prison. Now, the reason I am mentioning this is because that makes sense. Like, it makes sense why there could be one villain who is so powerful that they actually need to be permanently put away. But I just think treating all the villains the same doesn't make sense. And then I also think just, like, releasing all the villains doesn't make the sense. Like, you need to, like, be more selective. And I will give them credit where credit is due, because in Descendants, they do basically end up locking up Maleficent. And I will say it, I know, like, there is also an Evil Queen in Descendants, but basically, for just a very simple comparison for like power level and like what the characters do and stuff, like basically the Evil Queen from Ever After High is the equivalent to Maleficent in Descendants. They're both very powerful sorceresses. They both sort of want to overtake the world. And they both, I will say, they both do end up getting locked up. Like, Mal, I think, traps her mom inside, like, a lizard or something. Like, Maleficent ends up being stuck inside this lizard. So I will give them credit for that. But besides that, there are other villains, for example, like Ursula or somebody on the Isle of the Lost, who are very dangerous and probably shouldn't be freed. Quick interjection before we move on to our next world building point, but I want to shout out my business, the Dollcrafter Marketplace. The Dollcrafter Marketplace is the one and only online marketplace made by doll collectors for doll collectors, and anyone can go on there to buy and sell things related to doll collecting. And actually, right now on the Dollcrafter Marketplace, we are selling some used Disney dolls, but also some used Ever After High dolls, so definitely go check that out. Additionally, if you make customs, we sell custom materials on the Dollcrafter Marketplace. Also, if you make customs, you can actually sell your customs on the Dollcrafter Marketplace. And also, if you have used dolls laying around, you can sell them on the Dollcrafter Marketplace. So go check it out. It's sort of the doll collecting equivalent of Etsy, eBay, or Amazon, kind of like all wrapped into one. Check it out, even if you're not going to buy or sell anything, and just see what it's about and tell your friends about it too. So yeah, back to the video. Okay, now let's talk about the school, because I think the school setup in Ever After High makes a lot of sense, and I sort of already talked about this with the Destiny cycle, but I don't really think the school setup in Descendants makes sense, so let's get into it. So in Ever After High, how the school is set up is all the people who go to Ever After High are characters who have destiny. So they are basically all the main characters or characters who are like featured in stories. So Ever After High, like I said, exists in the fairy tale world. Now the fairy tale world is very huge. It has multiple kingdoms. There's so many princesses who go to Ever After High. Clearly there's a lot of kingdoms. But the thing is, not everybody in the world of Ever After High goes to Ever After High. There's other high schools mentioned, for example, Beanstalk High, Wonderland High, for like locals of different like kingdoms and realms. And I think that's very important to mention, that it's just the main characters who go to Ever After High, and that's very purposeful. And I really like the Ever After High world building, because the Ever After High world building makes it make sense why it's only the main characters who go to Ever After High. It's because they're the characters with destinies. They need to learn how to fulfill their destinies. The classes they take at Ever After High are things like Princessology or Home Evilnomics, things that are going to teach them how to learn traits that they will, you know, use in their destinies. For example, this is very silly, but like in the Princessology class, they literally practice sitting there and waiting for like a prince to rescue them. Now that's very dumb. And they also do, there is a whole plot thing about that in Ever After High with like feminism and stuff, because they do point out that that is dumb. But the reason I'm pointing this out, that they have like classes for that and stuff in Ever After High, is because Ever After High is quite literally a school made for characters to learn how to follow the same destinies as their parents, because they're all the main characters. This, in comparison to Ordon Prep just doesn't really make sense to me, because I guess maybe it's a prep school, so like all the rich kids who have like rich parents from the fairy tales go there. But again, I don't know the exact lore with Ordon Prep, but it does kind of confuse me, because I'm not sure if everyone in all of Ordon is supposed to go to Ordon Prep, because if that is the case, that just doesn't really make much sense to me. Because like, what do you mean? Like, there's all these different kingdoms from all the different Disney movies. Clearly all these kingdoms are very big, and I just don't feel like there's any way that like all the characters from all these kingdoms could go to Ordon Prep. So maybe it's just like all the characters who are rich and who have like you know, their parents are rulers of the different kingdoms in Ordon. Maybe that's the case for Ordon, but also that doesn't really make much sense to me either, because there's also people like, for example, I forget his name, but like one of the sons of like the seven dwarves goes to like Ordon, and like he's basically a peasant. So I'm like I thought this was for rich people, but actually there's peasants in here too. Like, I don't know, maybe Snow White like paid for his tuition. Just to me, the whole setup of Ordon Prep doesn't really make much sense. Additionally, the whole setup of Ordon doesn't really make much sense, and I'm gonna get into this later when I talk about the timeline. But like, what do you mean? Like, why did all the kingdoms decide to like go together? And also, why did they all decide to make like Beauty and the Beast the leader of all the kingdoms? Like, it just feels very, very random to me. And it just feels very random that they also decide to all make a high school for all the like the kids of the main characters of the fairy tales to go together, because again, they don't know that they're main characters. Like in Ever After High, they know they're main characters. Like, they know the destinies, they know the fairy tales. In Descendants, theoretically, they don't know their characters, but yet they have a high school where all the kids of the characters go. And this gets even more worse and even more confusing with Merlin Prep in like Rise of Red, because then we find out that also, oh my gosh, all their parents, or like a lot of the parents of the fairy tales, went to high school together, which again, that's even more confusing, because at the time a lot of them weren't even royalty yet, and also a lot of them hadn't even become famous yet. And it's just like, okay, so all the parents also went to high school together, allegedly. Maybe not all the parents, but a lot of like the fairy tale characters went to high school together, and that just completely breaks all the world building. And again, I feel like they're trying to like do something where they're like, oh well, Ever After High did it, Ever After High made it so the parents went to high school together, and that was cool, let's do that in Descendants. And it's like, no, Ever After High did that because it makes sense, because the parents were also learning how to fulfill the same destinies. The parents had to do the same thing. The parents were in the destiny cycle. There is no destiny cycle in Descendants. There's no reason that the parents should be going to the same high school when they're from very different lands. They should not even know about each other. And it just makes it like 10 times more confusing. And yes, they changed the name to Merlin Prep, but it's like, be so for real. Like, why are they in high school together? That like completely ruins all the world build. Okay, let's talk about another world building thing, the technology. So in Ever After High, they have the mirror net, they have mirror phones. It's basically like their whole cellular network / internet network. And I think this makes sense. And I think this makes sense because Ever After High is specifically set in modern day, or modern day when Ever After High was created. Like I said, Ever After High came out in 2013, and they have the modern day tech of like 2013. Now, like I said, this makes sense because, like I said, Ever After High was founded 200 years ago. So 200 years ago, theoretically, is when the original fairy tale characters existed. So since then, they have had time to develop modern technology, and I think it makes sense that they have all this mirror technology because they have had time to develop it. And again, Ever After High is literally supposed to exist in the modern day. Now, for Descendants, I don't think the modern technology, I don't think the cars, I don't think the phones, I don't think any of the technology in Descendants makes any sense whatsoever. Why? Because their parents were literally just one generation ago. In most of their parents' movies, there is no cell phones. There is like no computers. And a lot of them, there's no cars, no technology or anything. And you're meaning to tell me that like within one generation, they developed a ton of technology. Like, that just doesn't make sense, and I feel like that's a huge plot hole and a huge world building weakness for Descendants, because like I said, Descendants is quite literally supposed to exist right after the original Disney movies, but it feels like it's in a completely different universe. And quite honestly, Descendants feels like Disney fanfiction. When I say it feels like fanfiction, what I actually mean is it feels like a poorly written fanfiction. It feels like something a 12-year-old would just slap together because they want to see all their favorite characters interact, but they're not really actually thinking about the plot or the consequences, and they don't have to because they're just doing it for fun. But that does make for Descendants having like a weaker plot and world building. It feels like somebody made a fan fiction where they put all the Disney movies together but didn't consider any of the world building consequences. And quite literally, I feel like when the Disney executives were developing Descendants, they just like looked at Ever After High, knock on wood, allegedly, they looked at Ever After High and they were like, okay, we want to do something similar but with the Disney characters, and like, okay, we'll just put them together. And then they like didn't question it. They're like, well, in Ever After High they put them all together, so it's fine. And it's like, no, Ever After High has its very own specific world building, and unless you're going to do that very specific world building that Ever After High did with the Destiny cycle, it doesn't make sense for all these random different characters to be in the same world. Because additionally, now we're getting to our fifth and final world building comparison. Our fifth and final world building comparison is the timeline, because the timeline of Descendants makes no sense. So in Ever After High, I've already said it a million times, the timeline is that the Ever After High High School was founded 200 years ago, and then Ever After High exists in modern day. That's the timeline. There have been many generations since the original fairy tales. Apple and Raven are the ancestors of the original Snow White and Evil Queen. The timeline for Descendants, like I just said, is that Descendants is one generation after the generation of the original Disney movies. Now, this doesn't make sense because all those Disney movies, most of them took place in completely different time periods. One thing that has always bothered me is like Maleficent. She's from the Middle Ages, right? And I could see you reason like, oh yeah, Maleficent, like I could see you reason that Maleficent and Evil Queen could like exist in the same time period. I could even see you say, oh, the Evil Queen, Maleficent, and Jafar exist in the same time period. I could stretch my belief, even though I feel like those are all from different time periods because like history is very large, but you could stretch my belief like they exist somewhere in the past. You are not going to make me believe though that Cruella de Vil exists at the same time as Maleficent. Like, why is Cruella de Vil, who was like low-key from like 1940s London or something? Wait, was she from London? I think she was from London. I don't remember. But like, it's just the timeline is so messy. All these different stories are from very different time periods. Like, for example, Sleeping Beauty is very clearly medieval times, whereas like things like, for example, Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is actually supposed to take place sort of like right before the French Revolution. Like, that is many years after the medieval times. Like, all these different fairy tales do not take place at the same time, yet they somehow all exist in the same time period. And again, I just feel like this was another thing where the Disney executives were like, well, Ever After High put them all together so we can put them all together. Well, wrong, because in Ever After High, there's no specific set time period. Like, Ever After High, like I said, is just based on a lot of the original fairy tales, and a lot of the original fairy tales don't have any specific set time period. The problem is that in the Disney movies, through the fashion, through things that were mentioned, through the style of the original movies, it's very clear, even if we don't know the exact years, that the original Disney movies were set during different time periods. Like, they were not all set during the same time period, and I think that's very clear from the original animated movies. Like I said, they have different styles of dress, and even if they're not historically accurate, you can sort of estimate when around these fairy tales in the Disney movies took place. And then in Descendants, they all put them in the same time period. Like, unless there's some sort of magic time travel technology, which, I don't know, maybe in one of the Descendants books, they all time traveled to, like, the same time period. I don't know. It just feels like they're all randomly put together, and quite literally, it just feels like fan fiction. Now, again, this is like why I said before, I think this is why by the time we get to the end of the third Descendants movie, I just feel like the world building completely shatters, and I feel like a lot of people are like, oh no, I don't want to watch the Descendants 4 movie because I'm just done, like, I'm just like the original 3, I like the original trilogy, it's not going to be the same without Cameron Boyce, which I do want to give a shout out to Cameron Boyce. R.I.P. Cameron Boyce. I do also think that was a reason a lot of people stopped watching, and I also do think that broke the magic for a lot of people, and I do feel really sad about Cameron Boyce. I don't know why I'm like, I don't know what to say about that. Just R.I.P. Cameron Boyce. that did definitely change a lot of things, and I do understand in general why a lot of people didn't want to watch Descendants 4. But I also think a lot of the reason why people didn't want to watch Descendants 4 is, even if they didn't realize it, like, by the time we got to the end of Descendants 3, just, like, the world building completely shattered, like I said, with them releasing everybody on the Island of the Lost, because, like, everything that had built up till them was trying to, like, keep it safe and debating, should we free the Isle of Lost, should we not free it? And I feel like it would have made sense if they just, like, freed the kids from the Isle of Lost, but to free everybody, I just feel like that makes no sense at all. But I also just feel like from the beginning, the Descendants world building was, like, on stilts. Like, I just feel like it never really made sense, and hopefully you understand from all the points that I made why the Descendants world building never really made sense. And sorry, but the only way for me to really show you why it doesn't make sense is to compare it to Ever After High, because like I said, I just feel like so many pieces of the Descendants world building were just like things that people took from Ever After High but misunderstood about Ever After High, and that's why they are so bad. And again, I don't think like the Descendants movies in themselves are bad. Like, they're very cute, it's a very cute story. It's more just that they have very shaky foundation. Like, I think the first two Descendants movies are pretty good, but I think it's just by the time you get to the third one, it's like, what even is going on? Why are we even here? Why are we even doing this? And then I think it just gets very funny by the time you get to Descendants 4, because then it's like they travel back in time, and there's just even more stuff in Descendants 4 that, like, reminds me of Ever After High. And maybe I'll do another video actually reacting to Descendants 4, because funny enough, spoiler, I haven't even watched Descendants 4. But maybe I'll do a video reacting to that and see if my assumptions about it are correct. But I know way too much about Descendants 4 anyway, because I see it on TikTok all the time. Like, people want to know, oh my gosh, Ainsley, if you like Ever After High, then just stop talking about Descendants. Well, Descendants just keeps being shoved in my face, so I'm gonna talk about it. And also, like, I'll just make videos just trying to talk about Ever After High and explaining why Ever After High got canceled, and I'll bring up Descendants, and then people be like, oh, how dare you bring up Descendants? I'm like, well, I'm like, I don't know how to dance around that when explaining why Ever After High got canceled. I'm sorry, guys. Which, if you don't know, Ever After High didn't directly get canceled because of Descendants. It's more or less that Ever After High just got canceled basically because Mattel was losing a bunch of money, because basically when Ever After High came out, Disney got really angry with Mattel, and Disney took away the Disney Princess licensing from Mattel, which caused Mattel to lose a bunch of money. And then Disney went and made Descendants and new Disney Princess dolls with Hasbro, and Mattel really wanted the Disney Princess licensing back, so basically Mattel had to kill off Ever After High to work with Disney again and to please Disney, because very clearly, at least to me, it's very clear that Disney really did not like Ever After High, and I've explained that in my other videos. And I do think Disney was kind of justified in why they didn't like Ever After High, because so many people thought Ever After High was owned by Disney, and people thought Ever After High was based on the Disney characters when it's not. And there's so many people who think that even to this day, but Ever After High was never based on the Disney characters. But I think Disney saw that as a threat, because they're like, oh my gosh, we can't control Ever After High, but people think it's created by us. Like, what if Mattel does something weird with Ever After High and we can't control it? I also just feel like Disney was bad in general, because they felt like they were missing out on money by not being involved with Ever After High, and we know Disney loves money, so they decided to make Descendants. And from a business perspective, I do get why they decided to make Descendants, and I'm not trying to hate on you if you like Descendants. Like, I watched the first 3 Descendants movies. One of the reasons, like, there's many reasons why I'm not super interested in the new Descendants movies. Part of it is just because I now know, and I knew back then too, but I always knew that Descendants was inspired by Ever After High. But after Ever After High died, it was just extra hard to like Descendants, because it's like, not only was Descendants inspired by Ever After High, but also Disney actually did get Ever After High killed off. So it's kind of hard to go back and enjoy Descendants. But additionally, like I said, I just think by the third movie, the world building shattered. I was like, what even is this? And also, it's just sort of sad to watch them after Cameron Boyce passed away. So there's many, many reasons, but I hope you guys, whether you guys are an Ever After High fan or a Descendants fan, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you understand. And again, these are just fun fantasy franchises. You can let your imagination stretch. Even though the world building is like weak or whatever, I'm not saying you can't enjoy Descendants. You can enjoy it as much as you want. Also, one other thing I do want to address, because I know how you guys like to comment, and I know you guys are going to bring it up in the comment section, is people will say, oh my gosh, Descendants was in development in 2012. That's before Ever After High came out. Descendants existed before Ever After High. Guys, there is one piece of concept art for Descendants from 2012, and even then, like, the person who created that concept art, when they posted on their blog, could have like mistyped the year they created it. Like, that art actually could have been from 2013. But going with the fact that most people do think it's from 2012, that art says nothing about them being descendants of Disney characters. Like, the original Descendants art from 2012, I'll put it up here just because I know people are going to bring this up down below. They're going to be like, Descendants is not an Ever After High copy. They did this first. This says nothing about them being descendants of Disney characters. All this shows is characters whose designs are inspired by Disney villains. Like, this could have been a line similar to Disney I Love You, where they're just like dolls who have outfits inspired by Disney villains. Additionally, I know that they didn't really have the idea of Descendants finalized till after Ever After High came out, because guess what? Descendants was not trademarked till December 2013. Guess what? Ever After High came out in May 2013. That means Descendants was trademarked 6 months after Ever After High came out. So it took them 6 months to come up with the name to get back at Ever After High. So no. I think Descendants was very much inspired by Ever After High. Again, that's my opinion. That's all alleged. But that's what I think. And again, even if there were concepts of things that would become Descendants in 2012, you do realize that even when things are in development, they can change a lot and can be inspired by other things. So I think maybe originally Disney was going to do something more like Disney I Love You with Descendants, and just do sort of maybe dolls or merchandise or toys or outfits inspired by Disney villains. But then they decided, oh my gosh, Ever After High, kids of Disney characters, we should actually do that. And then they pivoted Descendants into that, and then that's why they copyrighted the name Descendants after Ever After High came out, because they pivoted to make Descendants about the descendants of the Disney villains. But I think maybe it wasn't originally that. Maybe it was just like teenage versions of the Disney villains. But you guys can disagree with me if you want, I guess, whatever. People are gonna think whatever they want. We don't really know, unless we could just, like, I don't know, go back in time and spy on the Disney boardroom. I guess we'll never know. But then there is another thing I want to disprove. A lot of people also say, oh my gosh, well, actually Ever After High copied Descendants because Descendants was in development in 2012. First of all, that is not true, because even like if this concept art was in development in 2012, like, do you think Mattel was like sneaking into the Disney back rooms and like stealing the Descendants concept art and making Ever After High? Like, no. When they were designing Ever After High, they had no idea this was going on. They had no idea about this. So there's no way Mattel copied Ever After High from Disney. That's just false. Like Mattel would have had no way of knowing about this concept art existing. And again, like I said, this concept art also says nothing about them being kids of like Disney characters or Disney villains, because that didn't exist till later. And I truly believe that part of Descendants was inspired by Ever After High, allegedly. But you guys can use your own brains. And also, Ever After High is a spin-off of Monster High. Like, it's very clear Ever After High does the same thing Monster High did, because basically when Monster High came out, Monster High was sons and daughters of famous monsters. Ever After High is sons and daughters of famous fairy tale characters. Ever After High is also in the same universe as Monster High. They were supposed to get a crossover before they got canceled. They do have a crossover book. C.A. Cupid, she travels from Monster High to Ever After High. Like, Ever After High is a Monster High spin-off. Ever After High is not based on Disney, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, please comment, like, and subscribe. Leave me your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if you agree with me, if you agree that it just feels like a lot of the world building for Descendants was just, you know, based on misunderstandings of Ever After High, because that's what it feels like to me. Once again, make sure to go down below and comment, like, and subscribe. And if you watched till the end of this video, go comment a dragon emoji down below to let me know, because I feel like that could represent either Mal or Raven. And also let me know what you thought of this video in your comment. Anyway, guys, my social media will also be linked down below, both my Instagram and TikTok. And also the Dollcraft Marketplace, my business, will be linked down below as well, so make sure to check those out. And overall, thank you guys for watching till the end of this video. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Bye!